So, Mr. Ambassador, we are hearing, I mean, we know that from both sides that talks between Russia and Ukraine are ongoing. One of Mr. Zelensky's advisors, he said peace can be possible in 1 or 2 weeks. Where are we? I mean, where are you at the negotiations?
We are at the battlefield. You know, it's for me, it sounds a little bit strange because I don't think there are two sides. There are invader and defender. There are different sides. It's first thing. So we are defending. In case Russians stop fighting, the war will be over. In case we will stop fighting, Ukraine disappear. That's the single as that. So for us, it is not possible to lay down weapons. That's the issue. About negotiation, they started immediately at the beginning of war, and we try to get some kind of understanding what Russia wants. But what up until today we have seen, it was the only ultimatums that give up and kiss our hands. Sorry, but that's was
it. Like, what is Russia insistent of demilitarization of Ukraine?
That Ukrainian armed forces should lay down all the weapons, make some distance from the battlefield, give up all the forces, give up all the position they take, recognize Crimea, give up NATO bid, give up independence, give up everything. So it's like subordination. It's not about the peace terms. It's about the subordinations and destroyment of the statehood. It's about that.
So these are not negotiations in that sense, if that is the case.
Yes,
there are no negotiations.
Look, I was during the meeting of our ministers. It was just a laughing from Lavrov's side. It was not the negotiations. He just say you should take our conditions which were put in this Belarusian format, and then we will be discussing. Not anything more. But if you look at what was proposed, it's just surrender, give up everything, give up your nation, your language, your statehood, and then we will be talking to you. So because at that period of time, there was a proposal to make some kind of humanitarian corridors, they rejected, to organize some kind of humanitarian ceasefire, rejection. There was no even single words about evacuation of civilian inhabitants from the besieged Mariupol. They rejected. So they would like to completely subordinate Ukraine, and that is their terms. Our terms is to pull back forces and start talks on other issues.
So how will this war end then, if there are no, sensible negotiations?
I started with a very critical point. We will not give up our weapons up until the terms of ceasefire will be agreed, because they insist that we should let's say use the terms not capitulation but just laying down weapons. It means in their meaning ceasefire. It's not about the bilateral ceasefire. That is their meaning. So what we now have left for us is just to destroy them. They are invaders.
Is the Ukrainian army able to destroy Russian army?
20 days already. The casualties are 1 to 10, and it's increasing. So if you look at the figures, they lost from manpower and for the military equipment more than they lost for two Chechen wars. All in all, they lost for 20 days. So it is severe resistance of the whole population. Even on the occupied territories, there is a severe resistance in peaceful manner. That is also one of the things which they didn't expect to, because they used to their people, which if they see policemen, they are come and laying down. In our case, our people just start to fight even without the weapons. That's
I understand all this military help from United States, other NATO countries. They also are helping Ukrainian army. Am I mistaken?
The whole world is supporting Ukraine now because we have a moral superiority. We are defending our land, and we have been receiving a strong support from Turkey as well. Starting from humanitarian assistance, political support. Maybe you have been witnessing all the words which have been said by President Erdogan, by Minister Çavuşoğlu, that they are not accepting the invasion. All these occupational attempts, etc., it's not acceptable for Turkey. And attempts to mediate, to find the ground for negotiations, it's also, let's say, dictated by the needs to have a peace in the region, not to subordinate to Russia.
Hmm. So, but Turkey said officially that they are supporting like Ukrainian resistance
Territorial
politically.
integrity. That's
However,
the key issue.
Turkey cannot join the sanctions against Russia. I mean, Turkey thinks
Yes,
they are not
every
ethical. So what do you
exactly.
think about this?
Every country has their own policy, but
Mhm.
Turkey already have closed the straits, and it doesn't allow Russian military ships from other fleets to enter Black Sea. Turkey already is supporting Ukraine with humanitarian assistance and with political support. Turkey already receiving refugees from Ukraine. Turkey already start negotiations, and which no other country managed to do up until today. So the platform is now being used in Turkey, and then Minister Çavuşoğlu is now going to Moscow. Maybe then he will be back to Ukraine as well, I believe. So it is now the active diplomacy, and active diplomacy is stronger than even maybe sanctions in this regard, because we need either military equipment to defend ourselves, in particular anti-aircraft and anti-missile systems, or active diplomacy to stop this bloodshed in other means, plus sanctions. From the West, they are more effective. I mean, when all the system doesn't work for Russia, and maybe they will at least understand that the whole world is against them.
Okay. Bayraktars. I mean, when I was in Ukraine, I saw the Bayraktar song on a Ukrainian TV channel. Are they a game changer in this war, do you think?
It's very important component of our defense. So we buy it, we use it. But I would say just to stop the rumors that Russians trying to push that supplies, etc. So the biggest supplier of Ukrainian army is Russian army, because so many tanks and sophisticated equipment which they hand over to Ukrainian forces. I mean, not in direct meaning. I've never seen in any war. Maybe in the beginning of 1941.
You have also S-300 defense systems, right? Am I mistaken?
We have a number of things. Buk, S-300, Tor, any other equipment, Strela, which are anti-aircraft. But you know, we are in comparison with the numerically in comparison with Russians, we are fewer. And these S-300 are used widely for intercepting these missiles, which have been launched from long distances, like cruise missiles or ballistic missiles. So our defense forces already managed to cap some of them, but they're too big in numbers. So according to our estimations, I don't remember the exact number, but it's a couple of hundreds missiles already fired against Ukraine. So we are really suffering from that.
So as far as we've been following, only Kherson is under total Russian control, isn't it? What are the situation in other cities like Mariupol and Odessa?
All other cities are under Ukrainian control and under strong defense. So let's think about that like a tactic. It was a specific tactic to take into consideration that the difference of forces were huge, and it was like maneuverable defense. It proved to be successful because all the forces which came to Kyiv or to Kharkiv, they were destroyed completely or partially. Now the Russians are trying to capture some territories more and trying to continue their invasion. But if to say strategically, they already stuck in big dimension. Most probably in the nearest 2 days, we will see the next attempt to attack Kyiv and to capture the Ukrainian capital. Or they will also try to penetrate to Zaporizhia and Dnipro in this direction from the southward to northwards. But still, Mariupol is taking strongly, and other cities are taking strongly. We are also making reserves in western part of the country. We're receiving a number of supplies from around the globe. I would say it's not the West only. It's also starting from Australia, our neighbors, Germany, Sweden, Finland, different other countries. They are sending us what they can because they understand.
Do you have a number of civilian casualties in Ukraine?
Yes. Yeah, I already had. So I have a number of kids. It was 93 for this morning. They dead and more than 150 injured, and more than almost 2,000 civilians dead. What I have now, it's even more than soldiers. So because Russians, they are now shelling civilians areas and residential areas without any military target there. So if you will see the last week attempts, the artillery and missile attacks, they are mostly hitting civilian infrastructure, and
The
nothing to do with.
Russian side is claiming that Ukrainian army have been firing missiles to Donbas area, and also Ukrainian missiles have been hitting civilian targets. Do you have any information about that?
Complete lie. Because for what reasons we need to attack Donetsk? I know this situation about Tochka U. When we just agreed the humanitarian corridor for Mariupol, it was nonsense. Even more, when we have been fighting on the suburbs of Donetsk, there was no such an attempt to shell residential area. There were some accidental shellings, and there were some investigations in the 2014-15. But after that, there is no. So if you look at our strategy, we are not attacking Russian cities. We are not attacking even Russian military object on the Russian side or Belarusian side, despite they launch a number of attacks from this territory. So for what reasons we should attack occupied territory just to have a revenge? Nonsense. And taking into consideration the limited number of our equipment, it is just so it's just a propaganda thing to show that we are also shelling some residential area, and it was done most probably by themselves. So it is their type of propaganda, and you will see how we have a number of interceptions from their phone conversation or radio conversation when they are saying that let's shell this and that, and say that it is Ukrainian who are shelling. So it is done purposely. For us, no need for that, because we now have a number of military targets to destroy, and to shell just a civilian city, it's nonsense.
Well, some say if in the beginning Ukraine did not insist on joining NATO this much, this war would never take place, because Putin is feeling threatened.
Bullshit, full bullshit. Because NATO, first of all, in 2014, Ukraine was non-aligned country. So we belong to non-bloc. We are neutral. On the insistence of Russians, we adopted a law in 2010. And when then invaded Crimea and eastern Ukraine, we were a non-aligned country. Then, to protect ourselves, we promote the idea to join NATO, but NATO didn't accept us. And this war had nothing to do with NATO, because even on the edge of war, there was no clear evidence that we will become a NATO member. So there was no agreement between NATO countries, and this is their mistake. Because if in 2008 they will accept Ukraine and Georgia to NATO, no war will happen today, or in 2014, or in 2008. And that is the West's mistake. The biggest mistake they made, because they are afraid of nothing. Even today, they are doing their bad things not to close Ukrainian airspace. If we fail, the next target will be the NATO country, not excluding Turkey as well, because Russian aggressive machine, it's just started to be very aggressive against everybody. And if not to stop Russians here in Ukraine, and not to punish criminals who already conducted a number of criminal acts, we have been collecting. So
you know, the news agency AFP, they have a breaking news. Mr. Zelensky said Ukraine must recognize it will not join NATO. What does that mean? What is your take on this?
It's now the political maneuvers about the getting some political ground on that, because we understand that we couldn't get the membership at once, and most probably we will just, as a part of political settlement, this issue could be. But it's nonsense now, because if even we reject our NATO membership bid, it will not lead to decrease of the threat from Russia. So the world has a big challenge now to decide what to do with Russia, because they already broke everything. They already start invasion. They already start killing people, and they should be punished for that. So it is not just words and sayings. We already applied to the International Court of Justice to bring all criminals, starting from Putin to ending to the last soldier who killed civilians, to brought to responsibility. And you will see them in jail.
Yeah, I mean, do you think there should be a discrimination or a differentiation between the Russian regime and the civilians? You've been talking about sanctions, but also Russian culture is being sanctioned. Some individuals are being sanctioned.
It's not about that. So majority of Russians are supporting Putin's aggressive policy. If you will look at their TV or their mass media, or the majority of people are supporting them, it means that they take the same responsibility. So now it was the people's responsibility to choose Putin, and it's their responsibility to support war, because they are sending their sons and fathers to this war, and they're supporting aggressive activity. So they are bearing responsibility as well. So it is not about culture in general, but it's about the people who are real people and supporting Putin. They should be as well taking responsibility.
Whole nation, whole Russian nation is responsible of this.
No, it's not about that. So because if you look at, for example, in the Ukraine, there are a number of Russians who are fighting against Russian who came to by native. They are fighting against Russian who came from Russia. If you will look at Kharkiv, for example, it's almost all completely Russian-speaking city, which is headed by also a number of Russian people, but they are fighting against these invaders because they are defending their homeland, and the whole Russian nation bear responsibility for those criminal activities which Russian state is conducting in Ukraine. It's for sure, and this is collective responsibility because they are supporting this cruelty. They are not saying nothing against war. They are not protesting against the cruel military activities of their army and their political forces. So they are fully responsible for all these crimes which have been conducted in Ukraine, and they will be taking responsibility for sure.
How about, you mentioned ethnical Russians living in Ukraine,
Yes.
how about, is that possible in the near future? They might face discrimination from their fellow
No.
Ukrainians, or are you taking any precautions about that?
No. In Ukraine, there is no distinctions. Are you Ukrainian, Russian, Jews, Turkish, whatever? You are just Ukrainian citizen, and if you are a citizen of Ukraine and fighting for Ukraine, no discrimination could happen in this regard. If you will look today at the front
there were
line,
human rights reports, especially in the eastern Ukraine, all before this, during 2014 war, that there have been some crimes against humanity, towards ethnic Russians here and there.
Conducted by Russians, Russian occupation forces in Donbass. It's only about that. If you will, for sure, I will just advise you after the war to go there and to speak with these people. Then you will recognize who was doing what. So it was a pure Russian propaganda. They are trying to accuse us of everything. So if you look even at their reasons why they conducted this war, they say about denazification. How you could denazify a country where there is even no nationalists in the parliament? What about Nazis? You couldn't fight them at all. The other thing is that the first target of the attack was President Zelensky. He's a center liberal political party and political views. Where are the Nazis? Kids, pregnant women, or residential areas? They are shelling. They are Nazis. Moreover, what they are doing now, it's the repetition of what had been done by Hitler during World War II. Creating this system of control and suppression and killing civilians, they are doing like Nazis have been doing. So they are Nazis. That's true.
You mentioned the support from all over the world to Ukraine. Do you think that's enough? What else Ukraine need?
Ukraine need more support for the battlefield. First of all, anti-aircraft and anti-missile system plus aircrafts. We are asking the whole world to provide us with that because we need to defend physically. Secondly, we need stronger sanctions on Russians if the other world wouldn't like to fight, because still we need to stop the bloodshed, and the bloodshed could be only stopped when they have no fuel for the war. It means not only fuel in direct meaning, but also for the money and other things. And then to bring Russia to responsibility. I mean, the International Court of Justice or other international institution should sue them for all criminal acts they conducted, both in Ukraine, Syria, Moldova, Georgia, in other countries where the Russian bombs have fallen. Because if these criminal activities or if this evil will not be punished, it will be repeated. You will see it in other countries. So now the source of evil is in Moscow, and it should be punished for sure with all the necessary international instruments just to stop the spreading of this criminal war they're spreading around the globe. Because you have seen it also in Syria, how they bombarded the civilian residential area, where the dead kids and dead ladies have been laying down. The same now in Ukraine. So it is repeated, and they are not stopping there if we will not stop them. And this should be a responsibility.
Do you think after this war, Ukraine will become a part of the EU?
Yes, for sure. We already are going in the very smooth procedure of being received to the EU. For sure, it is not the issue of discussion with the Russians, and for sure, it is the dimension which Russia pushes back very forcefully by this war. Because if before war there were still some, I don't know, maybe 7-8% of population who have been thinking about some good relations with Russia, I believe today even 0.1% exist in Ukraine who believe in good relations with Russia. Nothing.
Do you think the regime change in Russia is imminent? There are, I mean, some people are reporting about this, but since Russian system is very closed, it's really hard to know and foresee. Do you think that's possible, like Putin being toppled or something?
It's a speculation. It's a wishful think. We're living in real world, and we should be prepared for defense of peace around the globe, not only with regard to Ukraine, because Russians are conducting subversive activities around the globe. It's also linked to the propaganda, to the to the fake newses, to the subversive activities, killing of some opposition leaders, etc. So Russia is not calm, and they're aggressive in different dimensions. And it is not contradiction to West. It's the false narrative. It's the contradictions to the whole world, including those countries who seems to be friendly now. Because we were a friendly country before the invasion. Why they invaded? So they couldn't explain even why, because they would like to subordinate us. That's as simple as that. So don't believe in these rumors and some miracles. We just need to fight and to push them back. That is the only way to stop Russian invasion.
Do you want to add something else, Mr. Ambassador?
So I appeal to all people that please understand that it is not a real war or ordinary war between two military forces. It's the massacre organized by Putin's regime against Ukrainians, which was previously organized in Syria and in other countries. And they are pushing this evil cruelty for domination in the region and what domination around the globe. And they're using also the threat of nukes they have, or the threat of using this tactical or other nukes in these military activities against other countries. So let's not look at them as an ordinary country, but as the criminals who are conducting criminals. And the other thing I would like to mention, that let's not compare two sides. There is no two sides. There is one which is criminal, which is conducting criminal acts, another which is defender. This is Ukraine. And please make a distinction between two, as you said, sides. It's not two sides. It's just one attacking, second is defending. That's the pure as that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, too.